There's certain people, again, I've dealt with this in the past, there's certain people who that's too much for and it's triggering. And instead of being vulnerable and saying like, hey, how did you get all this? This is amazing. How did you, what made the biggest difference? Some other people will say like, wow, that person really sucked.
The wrong energy at the wrong time in the wrong amount is going to create some sort of trauma response. And I think that if you aren't aware of that, you're going to either lash out at people or maybe avoid things you should embark on.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was episode number 1298, the 3 possibilities we need to understand. Today, for episode number 1299, happy Friday, why some people think you're too much. So, somebody reached out to me the other day, and they said, I met this person. You ever meet somebody and they're just too much? And I was like, yeah, of course. And I said, just for my understanding, I just want to ask a couple questions, because I think from the awareness I have now, I might actually understand why this person was quote unquote too much for you. Do you mind if I ask a couple questions? And they said, no. I said, was this person either very high and or delusionally high when it came to self-worth and or self-belief? And this person said, definitely. They had delusionally high self-worth. It was just that type of person that thinks everything is about them, and that type of person. I said, oh, interesting. And again, not a judgment. And I said, oh, okay, interesting. What if when somebody is quote unquote too much for you, it's because there's too much contrast between where they are and where you are? And instead of, and again, this isn't a right or wrong thing, but instead of potentially owning, if it's an option, if this is what's supposed to happen, owning the contrast and saying, oh, maybe I could believe in myself more, maybe I could raise my self-worth a little bit more, your natural tendency is either to run away or to tear them down. The reason I throw that out as an example, we had an event in Florida in 2018, 19, I don't know, whatever. There was a year we had an event in Florida. We partnered with Eddie Pinero of Your World Within. Shout out to Eddie P, you're the man. And I remember we flew down to Florida and we went for a walk along the beach, and then we went back to Eddie's place. I think it was Eddie's place. Yeah, and then we got a workout in. Remember that? We were working out in the gym in the basement.
Oh, yeah.
Great workout. We all had awesome workouts, and when I'm doing this workout, I feel really good. Very confident. I feel good. The second we finish the workout, we start talking about business in the gym. There's nobody else in the gym. It was an apartment gym, so there wasn't a lot of people there. And I remember the second we started talking about business, I got super insecure. And I remember in real time saying to myself, Kev, just because you're insecure doesn't mean you have to villainize Alan and Eddie because they're confidently talking about business. Like that doesn't have to happen here. That was a breakthrough for me because I realized in that moment, you guys were quote unquote too much for me. The contrast was too great. And instead of villainizing you and saying, oh, they're arrogant, or whatever it is, right? We're supposed to be working out, we're supposed to be in the gym, whatever. I tried to own it, take ownership and say, oh, interesting. The reason I feel the way I feel is because of the contrast between where I am and where they're talking. That's not necessarily a them issue, right? That could be as much about me as anybody else. So I would offer those two perspectives in this episode where if you've ever met somebody that is too much, maybe they are delusionally high self-worth, delusionally high self-belief, whatever, it's very possible. If you've ever been called too much, maybe it's because the contrast between who you are as a human and the confidence you have in yourself, your level of self-worth, your level of self-assurance, whatever it may be, maybe that contrast is very great. And that other person does not know how to close the contrast. They don't know how to be vulnerable with that. And they treat you potentially negatively because they identify you as quote unquote too much.
I had a client once that is an unbelievably sweet human being. She is one of my favorite people to this day and very clearly wants good for other people, like very clearly lives to serve and help others. And she had a business that she started probably 10 years ago. And then for 5 years, she basically, that business ended up going bankrupt. So she failed her first time, quote unquote. Learned a ton from all of that. Went in with a business partner on a new business, same industry. And this time was very, very successful. Multi-million-dollar business, extremely, extremely successful. One of the best in the industry, actually. And fast forward, she's coaching with me, and we're talking about this, and she actually is selling her practice, which is awesome. But she ends up having a lot of lifestyle improvements in a very short amount of time. She goes from kind of a modest home, upper modest home, to basically a huge mansion, $3 million mansion, basically. And she ends up inviting all of the people from her past over to honor these other women. And I forget the context of this, but it was something along the lines of honoring incredible women. And we were talking about it. And she's like, I'm so excited. It's going to be amazing. And I remember later on, we talked after the event, and not all of it was bad by any means. It was probably very, very incredible in certain regards. But what I do think was fascinating is I unpacked this with her behind the scenes. I'll keep all this anonymous. She said, I was a little bit surprised at how poorly certain people treated me. I didn't understand why that was. There was a lot of weird little lash outs and kidney punches, and I wasn't really treated with a ton of kindness from certain people from my past. And I didn't understand this back then when she was telling me this story. Now it's very, very clear. There was just a huge amount of contrast. This person, I know her well. You know, they have very expensive, nice cars. They have a huge, amazing mansion. They've got 47 acres. It's just this wonderful estate. And most people, statistically speaking, will never get there. And I think that she was too much for them. Too big of a mirror. Too big of a mirror. And unfortunately, this is what I believe to be the hardest part of growth, genuinely. You know, Kevin and I, we've done episodes in the past about fear of failure or fear of success. For Kevin, it's like, why would you ever fear success? Like, that's what we're playing for, isn't it? But, Kev, with all the respect and love in the world, brother, I don't think you spent your life with the level of confidence that would be a huge mirror. And don't get me wrong, you've been a big mirror in certain regards, but you also were a fighter. I don't think anyone ever came and attacked you. I should say. I'm sure a lot of people have judged you behind your back. I doubt that they've attacked you because honestly, I think a lot of people are afraid you're going to fight them.
I don't. I like fighting, but I don't want to fight people. I like fighting things that don't fight back.
Yeah. But I personally have always, and now I understand too, you know, in hindsight that I've been a big mirror as well. And so if you're listening, I think you can relate probably to fear of success, not because you don't actually want to be successful. Of course you want to be successful, right? Everyone wants to be successful. That makes perfect sense. Better body, better business, better relationship, fulfillment, joy, love. Of course. You know what you don't want? You don't want the people you love to attack you or to kidney punch you or to make fun of you behind your back or to have these weird lash outs. I was on the phone earlier with someone, I'll keep it anonymous, and he's in great shape. He went and he had pizza with some of his old friends. And quite frankly, just me speaking objectively here, even now I'm tiptoeing, right? Quite frankly, he's leagues ahead of his past friends. You know, he's in great shape. He takes care of himself. He tracks his habits every day. He's brilliant. He reads books on books on books. I mean, he's just awesome, okay? Just plain awesome. Wonderful human. Just love the guy. His past friends, some of them treated him very kindly and lovingly, and some of them were very mean and unkind. And so this person really focuses on longevity. I'll make this really land. This person focuses on longevity. They eat the right foods. You know, they eat way healthier than I do. They're optimizing their sleep. Just amazing. And one of his friends is like, hey, by the way, your aging thing isn't really working that well. I see some grays in your beard, gray hairs in your beard. So obviously the longevity stuff isn't really doing it. You know what? Whatever that is, it's like you're going to find the one indicator that everything I'm doing is now less valuable because you've determined that now I'm aging. whatever, I talked to this person behind the scenes and we were very, emotional about this. I said that I've gotten stuff like that my whole life. I don't know why. I don't get it. I don't know if I ever will. I don't do that to other people, even people who quite frankly deserve it. But for some reason, I think it's this. I think you're just too much. And maybe that's a room you don't belong in, if I was talking to this person. Or maybe, and I told this to my client, the one that hosted the big thing, she's like, I don't get it. I'm trying to honor these women. Like, it wasn't even about me. It doesn't matter. None of it was about you. It was about the insecurities of all of your past relationships and the trigger and trauma response of the fact that they're never going to be in a $3 million mansion, or at least they don't believe they're going to. And so for me, I've never really understood it, but I also believe in myself and I have dreams and goals and I have a bright future. So I want to empathize. I don't want to empathize or make it okay to bully people. I think that's terrible. And I think celebrating other people's success is a true indication of your own greatness. I've always tried to celebrate success, other people's success, as long as it's not at the expense of others. And, I hope everyone can try to be in a place of abundance where they can do that. But I also understand when you're super scarce and you don't believe in yourself and maybe there's too much contrast, maybe unconsciously you attack or make some rude comment or whatever. And I think we've all done that at times. I talked about my short bullying phase with Josh. There was a fourth grade, and he was littler than me, and I bullied him at recess pretty much every day for a couple months. And after that, I just never did it again, and I never will.
I think it is contrast, because when your state is off, everything gets a little more challenging. We had Next Level Live last weekend, or whenever you're listening to this, it could be 2 weekends ago. I don't know when this is dropping, but I got my Oura Ring thought that I took a nap. Said, did you take a 2 hour and 44 minute nap last night? And that was, so I got up 2 hours and 44 minutes of sleep. Alan and I got up at 3:45 and showered and then went to the venue. We were there at 5:15, I think. The team
foggiest morning of all time.
Yeah, it was dangerous. Then the team,
Emilia had a headlight out, so it was brutal for the kid.
The team came like an hour later, I think. I think they came around like 6-ish. But we did the event. It went awesome. We were on stage for a good amount of time. We were communicating with humans basically from 6 a.m. until 1 p.m. So it's that 7 hours of just pouring out everything, absolutely everything you have. We pack up the stuff, and it's just a whole thing. So I stop and get food for the team on the way home. I pick up
Wicked
Amy
Wings.
D.
Shout out to Wicked Wings.
Shout out to Wicked Wings. Amy
Delicious.
D was there because there was a whole thing we were supposed to go. It was just a whole thing. So I ended up picking up Amy D, driving her to get Alan, and then we go to the Airbnb. And when we got back to the Airbnb, Alan's fishing and everybody's outside, and I'm like, I'm just gonna hang back here. I need a minute. So then later, Emilia came over, and the team, everybody from the team was there, everybody that was coming. And I literally was like, I need to go away from everybody. So there was an upstairs that had this really cool window nook. Like it was I don't even know how to explain it, but it was really cool. And there was a TV in front of it. So I was watching like old Mike Tyson fights. I was watching boxing matches and that stuff. But the reason I went up there and hid, kind of, for lack of better phrasing, is because I knew everybody's energy was going to be too much. I knew I gave everything I had. And the night before, I only slept 4 hours. So I had 7 hours of sleep in 2 nights. I just was burning to the ground. Rather than villainizing all the positive energy and the possibility and the high self-worth and wow, we really crushed it, rather than villainizing that because I didn't feel like I could live there, I went upstairs and watched Mike Tyson fights and some other UFC fights. So you can consciously make the decision to understand when I sense contrast, because this is what's happening, I think. When you sense contrast, you're doing one of two things. You're trying to close the gap. You either close the gap by pouring into yourself and saying, okay, it's not as bad as I think, or this person isn't negative for believing that, let me move myself towards them. Or you break the contrast by breaking the mirror, saying, well, that person's terrible, whatever, right? Let me knock them off their pedestal. So that's not what I wanted to do, because I think sometimes when I'm scarce, that's probably my natural tendency, unfortunately. But at least now sorry to smack the camera, at least now I'm more aware of it, enough so where I can kind of see myself out of the situation.
It's interesting. So this is what I wrote down. I was thinking about music, and you and I talked a little bit about rap and how rap tends to be just an ego vibration. And it's almost like a permission to be in your ego for a short time. Like I listen to hardcore rap in the gym because that's when I want to, like, you're not going to hurt the weight's feelings. You just get after it, right? But I don't like to live in that vibration most of the time. And I was thinking about music and how it's kind of too much or too little depending on the circumstance. So you and I, after a long, long day, I remember we drove from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way down to Delray Beach, Florida, all the way back in one day, 5 hours there, 5 hours back. Remember that way back? And on the whole ride home, it's like 1 a.m. or something like that. It's like late. And we're just listening to like sad acoustic music. Stained, I think? Stained?
Yeah, we listened to Stained. We listened to, it was sad stuff.
And that's okay. And this is imagine, and I always joke because I'm like an old timer now, quote unquote. But like whenever you're in a club nowadays, it's just and there's no like silence between the notes. It's just so raw, you know? And I remember thinking, I made a joke of like, where are the lyrics in these songs? Like, I need some lyrics. I need some like lows. I want to, I just want to go like listen to like peaceful piano. I'm too old for this stuff, jokingly. But that's what it is. It's the same thing. I'm not trying to club right now. I need to like go sit and I have my melancholy playlist that Kevin playfully makes fun of. Alan's Greatest Melancholy. And it's because sometimes I just want to sit in my emotions and be sad. Other times I want to get up and I want to get after it. And I think that the wrong energy at the wrong time in the wrong amount is going to create some sort of trauma response. And I think that if you aren't aware of that, you're going to either lash out at people or maybe avoid things you should embark on. Kevin and I were playful with this earlier, but he said sometimes, when I'm going to come and work with you, I feel like I have to prepare to be perfect. And it's not prepare to be perfect, but prepare to be at your best. And I know you and I are deep talks at 1 a.m. and it's like, brother, I got to go to the bed. I can't do this. I can't be this on right now. And I know I've felt that way in the past too, when Emilia's in a really high positive energy riding a high and I'm like insecure and going through some stuff. That's usually when you butt heads, and instead of realizing like, oh, okay, this isn't her fault or my fault. This is just the states we're in and we're not on the same wavelength. We're not on the same wavelength. How can we constructively either get on the same wavelength or I can go take a minute or vice versa? And that's what I think is the point of this episode.
So group coaching was definitely an experience for me. Getting to know the people was really, really cool. Everybody's kind of moving towards the same goal. And I definitely started to see the value in what Kevin and Alan were presenting to us. PPT for me was something that was really huge. I was looking for a system to help me kind of keep track of the things that I had to do every day to make sure that I was productive. I feel like I got so much value out of it, and I am so grateful that I took the leap and I decided to join.
Yeah, I think a great question is, what's the contrast? That's it. What is the contrast that I'm sensing, and how is that making me feel? On both ends. I guess if you're being called too much, you probably don't know what the contrast is, because for you, you're just being you. So maybe, this is a hard one, right? Because it's really hard to approach this episode from both scenarios. But if you are and have been called too much, it's most likely because there's a contrast of something. Energy, possibility, confidence, self-worth. The list is long. Success, money, potential. There's a lot of things. And I think there's certain people, again, I've dealt with this in the past. There's certain people who that's too much for and it's triggering. And instead of being vulnerable and saying like, hey, how did you get all this? This is amazing. How did you, what made the biggest difference? Some other people will say like, wow, that person really sucked. And I can't believe they'd spend $3 million on a home or whatever. They're going to come up with their own justifications for why they feel the way they feel.
I want to share this. That first one is so empowering.
For sure.
I'll tell this story because Bianca wouldn't mind me sharing this. So Bianca was in a misaligned relationship for a year, and she went into the aversion phase, which we've talked a lot about, which is she just kind of wasn't really a big part of the community. She wasn't really a big part of NLU or Kevin and I's lives for a while there. And we've all experienced that to some extent, right? A friend that gets with a partner that maybe isn't super aligned, and then that partner like slowly siphons them off from everything that was good. It's like a very dangerous thing that honestly, sometimes that gets really dark. So be careful. But I kind of audioed her and I said, listen, this isn't what's best for you in my opinion. I think this person is bad for you. And she eventually woke up and she broke up with that relationship. Everything I had said was true and then some. But anyways, eventually we went to Florida together, all four of us. And it was me, you, Emilia, and Bianca. And we went to an event, and for her, that was really hard for her. She shared with me behind the scenes. She's like, I fell behind so much. Because she used to jam with you, me, Emilia, and then when it was us three in a room with her, and she had been kind of out of it, for lack of better phrasing, for the past year, like outside of the growth bubble, she was like, that was way too much for me. It's too much feedback. Like, I luckily she didn't villainize us. She was just humble, courageous, and vulnerable. That, I think, instead of villainizing the multi-million-dollar mansion, or instead of villainizing someone who's in better shape than you, or has more self-belief than you, or who's more confident than you, or who has higher self-worth than you, instead of villainizing it, what if you were just a student? What if you were just like, how did you get in such great shape? I think it's so empowering. And I told her recently, I said, B, like, this next chapter is going to be really challenging for you, but not in a bad way. It's because you've gotten so much more success because of what happened all those years ago. Like the comeback was so big after Florida because she hung in the discomfort of the contrast. Whereas she easily could have been like, I don't fit in here. I'm not good enough to be here. Instead of owning that in myself and being humble and vulnerable and courageous, I'm going to villainize them because they're so confident or whatever. And then I'm out. Guess who loses in that regard though? B would have been the one who missed out, not us. And of course we would have missed out on B. We love B. But I just hope that our listeners understand that sometimes you're supposed to be in rooms that make you uncomfortable at the ego level. You're supposed to. It's supposed to make you, it's called out getting outside your comfort zone. You want to get around people who are way ahead of you. And it's supposed to trigger you a little bit. But your reaction to that trigger, I think, is what needs to be the focal point.
I would concur. I'm glad we did. I'm sorry, I was just typing, making sure I have next episode prepared because I've been out here jeffing lately, but I do. I think this is an important one because I haven't really been on your end feeling too much. That's not, I don't know if anybody's ever said, Kev, you're too much.
You getting that more these days?
Not really. No, not really. I don't know. I don't know if it's just because I, again,
what about
I don't.
on the podcasting side?
No. I had somebody say the other day, like, you're masterful at taking complex things and making them super simple. It's like, all right, cool. That's probably not too much, right? That's exactly what I'm trying to do. So, no, I don't think so. But I don't think that's because that's not my natural tendency. My home is not that. That's not my home.
What's your home?
My home is thinking people are too much. Not people thinking I'm too much. I think. I don't know. I don't think I have high self-belief. I think my self-belief's good. I don't think it's like, maybe I'm sure I say certain things. Like, I want to be a billionaire. That's not relatable at all. But again, that's not like, if you leave, I'm going to change my goals. I'm like, yeah, that billionaire thing probably not going to happen anymore. Let me change that. Let me knock a couple of zeros off that bad Larry.
Well, it's interesting. Everyone has a home then? So you either feel like the one who...
I think it's interesting where maybe this will be a breakthrough. I understand what it's like to want to villainize people because the contrast is too much. So when I am quote unquote too much, I think I know how to close the gap quickly so somebody doesn't feel that way. And then you're probably on the opposite where...
Definitely.
You know what it's like to empower somebody so they don't feel like they're too much because they'll never be too much around you.
Wow.
Is that a thing?
If you're out there listening, identify which one is you. Okay. And it really comes down to, are you afraid of failure or are you afraid of success? I can pick out the people on the NLU team and clients. A lot of my clients are more afraid of success than failure. Definitely. Because they're just such a big mirror for everyone else, They struggled. So this is what it is, I think. Do you feel like it's easy to get along with people? Or do you feel like it's easy to achieve your goals? for me, it's very difficult for me to get along with others. It's easy to achieve my goals. For you, it's the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm. Naturally, yeah.
So I think this is why. It's either you're in the growth paradigm and you feel like you can achieve a lot, but you struggle to get along with others, or you're in the relationship paradigm and you're good at relationships, but you struggle to achieve your goals. And again, obviously there's nuances in both, but
yeah, I was going to say it depends on how much contrast there is. I mean, if you're like, say you're, when it comes to health, wealth, life, and love, say you're a 10. Healthy, vibrant, good-looking, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health. Wealthy, financially free, have nice things, time, freedom, able to travel all over the place, and deeply in love. Like amazing relationship. If you have all three of those and somebody at a level 10 and somebody has all three of those at a level 1, you're way more contrast than somebody who has all three at a level 7. So I think that's also part of it too, is the more whatever you are, if it's, say it's extraordinary, whatever, the more of a mirror you are, the less people are ultimately going to resonate with you. It just makes sense. Like if you're 7 foot, think of an NBA player. If you're 7'2", there's not a lot of people that can understand what that's like because it's just rare.
right.
So I think
It makes sense.
that's kind of part of it.
And this goes back to the episode we did earlier this week on your superpower. Real life superheroes, your uniqueness, own your weird. Own your weird. Wherever you're the weirdest, this is it, Kev. Wherever you're the weirdest, you suppress it because it's so big of a mirror. And
Yeah,
when
that's
it's
fair.
so for me, if my self-belief and goal, I would say my goal orientation and my level of drive, I would say is my weird. I would say it's weird, definitely. My therapist literally said I've never seen anyone who has that, whatever that is. Emilia's therapist told her the same thing, which is interesting. And that's probably why we aren't huge mirrors for each other. Because it's like,
100%.
she's definitely more driven than I am, for sure. And it's awesome. I'm grateful because it makes me more driven.
It has been a mirror for you. You've said before, like you feel guilty sometimes not working.
When I'm really scarce, it is.
Yeah.
And that's what this is.
That's you understanding what it's like to be on the other end.
Which is why I'm also getting better at all this. Yeah. I'm very grateful for that. Because now I'm on the lower end of drive. Not the lower end of drive to 5, but that too. That's fair. Which is fascinating. So wherever you're weird, you're probably afraid of success. Because you're weird in that, which makes other people triggered. And so it's almost like when you own your weird, you're statistically an anomaly, but you trigger people in the center of the bell curve. So you have to establish that as a good thing somehow. Like Kevin, let's say you, me, and Taylor Swift hung out. There's no mirror there until we start singing. The moment we start singing, you and me are going to be terrible. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
So I think that's her superpower.
Yeah. Well, that's what she's looked up to for as well. So there's a lot of intricacies to this that I don't know yet. I'm very cautious to say certain things unless I feel very confident in them. When it comes to you and I philosophize a lot, and a lot of this is theory. I don't know. Is it a lot?
I'm not drawing any conclusions. I'm contemplating.
I know.
And
for
trying
me,
to
it's
draw new conclusions, of course.
I would definitely be insecure around Taylor Swift. For sure. Of course I would. She's
Why?
Because she's 6 inches taller than I am. She's one of the most recognizable humans on planet Earth. Yeah, that would be a lot, for sure.
But she seems like a sweetheart. Again,
Yeah. But that doesn't
I
matter.
see you. I know what you're saying. Okay, fair. Okay, what's a better example then?
I don't know.
But do you know what I mean? We'd be extra insecure when we were all singing, though.
For sure.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I meant. Meaning,
Okay.
you and me start doing spreadsheets in front of everybody, you're going to be more insecure than if we're on the mics.
I'm going to crush it. Control.
You actually would.
Control. No, I don't know. Yeah. Well, I think last thing, because we got to go, because this is a hyper-conscious episode, and you and I are going to stay on here all day if we don't. I think the other thing too is you also have to understand, me going into spreadsheets with you, I know I'm not going to win. So I'm already trying to say, I know I'm going to be more insecure here. It's almost like I'm going to be extra insecure. Because it's not only is it a competition that I don't necessarily want to be part of, it's a competition where it's not my strength zone. Spreadsheets is just not my jam. I'm decent now because you've taught me and I've just been in them more than I'd like to admit. But if you can, it's almost like Alan's going to be a super mirror here in that arena. You and I used to go to the gym. Shout out to our buddy Mark. We used to go to the gym with our buddy Mark. And I used to treat him very, very gently because I realized like I'm probably already going to be intimidating if I'm lifting very heavy weight. I want to make sure that I don't overly intimidate. I don't want there to be there's already contrast. I don't want there to be too much contrast to the point where he doesn't want to come work out with us because I know it'll help.
Yeah, it's the right amount of outside the comfort zone. Yeah, in order to when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. It's kind of that. If the student isn't ready, it's going to be too big of contrast. And I use the thermostat as the analogy. What if it's 98 degrees in here and you want it to be 72? You're going to want to leave the room and go find 72 because it's too uncomfortable at 98. So this is the question I wrote. What's your best energy? That's not going to land.
That's great.
Great. Excellent question. No, what is the energy? What is your set point? Now, ignore that question. Ignore that question completely.
What's your default? What's your home?
Yeah. Do you tend to be too much or too little, for lack of better phrasing? I don't like too little because it makes it seem like a negative thing.
Yeah.
But which end of this do you tend to be on? Do you tend to be the too much? And obviously it depends on the arena, or do you tend to be like intimidated?
You and I were supposed to do 2 episodes in this time. We went very, very, very deep on one.
It's a good episode.
It was. I'm glad we did this one. This is very hyper-conscious. This is, I love talking about stuff like this. Because I've never heard it talked about like this. Again, everything I said could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know if anybody will ever know, because if it resonates with you, then it might be right. So I love doing episodes like this because it's based on an experience, and it's like, okay, if we can peel back a layer and that layer connects to another layer, it's just we're pulling a string that I don't know we'll ever actually get to the end of it. So glad we did it.
Same.
Next level nation. If you have been told you're too much, and maybe it's because you have giant goals, maybe it's because you have giant dreams, maybe it's because you believe in yourself, maybe it's because you have high self-worth, and you're looking for a community where it's okay to be quote unquote too much. It's okay to want great. It's okay to love yourself. Please join our private Facebook group, Next Level Nation. It is totally private, so you can actually be yourself and you don't have to worry about people tearing you down.
If you're feeling lost, if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling directionless, if you're afraid of success or you're afraid of failure, group coaching is for you, because it's going to be a team of like-minded individuals that are all humble, courageous, and vulnerable. Humble, courageous, and vulnerable. There are no bullies allowed. So you are safe to be your weird in group coaching. Group 10 is closing Monday at midnight, and we start on Tuesday evening. We already have, I want to say, there's 3 or 4 that are fully signed up. There's at least 6 people who are interested, and then there's a couple messages I'm still waiting on. But either way, we are starting on Tuesday. Reach out to myself or Kevin. We have a promo code. Reach out to myself or Kevin. The promo code is 30% off, which brings the price to less than $100 per month for 3 months. I think it comes to $96. So for $96 a month, you can have Kevin, myself, and the assistant coach in your corner with the rest of the group. We've already graduated 90 plus people from this program, 9 other groups. It's a very well polished product. I hope that you take the leap of faith with us.
Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1300. The big 1300. One thing people get confused about when it comes to money, I actually had this kind of happen to me a couple weeks ago, so I'm excited to go deep on that. It should be a really good episode. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
You got this, Next Level Nation.